The sun was dropping behind the rows of identical houses, leaving long orange stripes across Maple Street. Diego Ramirez, 9 years old, jogged along the curb, one hand dribbling an invisible soccer ball, the other clutching the strap of his weather-stained backpack. Every step squished softly. His socks were damp with practice field sweat, but his mind replayed the goal that had sailed past the keeper and into the net.
Dad will love that one,
he thought, chest swelling. A police cruiser eased up beside him. The engine's low rumble matched his stride for 3, 4, 5 heartbeats. Diego slowed, uncertain. The passenger window slid down.
"Hey, kid, step over here a minute,"
said Officer Trent Barker. His voice was casual, almost bored, yet Diego felt the weight of command in it. The red and blue bar on the roof, dark for now, cast a faint metallic glare across the officer's smooth badge. Diego answered with the politeness drilled into him at home.
"Yes, sir?"
"Where you coming from?"
Barker asked, parking the cruiser at an angle that blocked half the sidewalk. He climbed out and closed the door with an echo that bounced off tidy lawns and plastic mailboxes.
"Soccer practice, sir,"
Diego replied. He lifted the end of his jersey to wipe sweat from his brow, revealing brown skin mottled with fresh turf marks. Barker's eyes dragged over the patched-up cleats and muddy shin guards.
"Practice, huh? That uniform looks real expensive for a kid your size."
"It's just second-hand,"
Diego said, voice steady but quiet. Mom had scrubbed the number off the back because it belonged to someone else.
"My team's the Lions,"
Barker sniffed.
"Heard about a bike stolen 2 blocks from here. Suspect's a short Latino kid in sports gear."
He gripped Diego's shoulder and spun him gently, checking the backpack. The touch felt wrong, too rough for curiosity, too familiar for a stranger.
"I didn't see any bikes, sir,"
Diego said, heart thrumming.
"I'm just walking home."
"Uh-huh."
Barker's fingers tightened.
"What's your name?"
"Diego Ramirez."
"And who do you live with, Diego Ramirez?"
"My dad, he—"
Diego hesitated, heartbeat fluttering, then finished with pride.
"He's in the Special Forces."
The officer's lips curved into a thin smile.
"Special Forces, sure. And I'm the president."
He laughed once, sharp enough to prick the silence of the street.
"Don't lie to me, kid."
"I'm not lying,"
Diego whispered. Barker released Diego's shoulder, only to plant a hand flat against the boy's upper back, pressing him onto the hood of the cruiser. The metal was still sun-warm, yet unforgiving. Diego's breath fogged the windshield as panic surged.
"Hands where I can see them."
Barker's tone iced over. Diego obeyed, palms spread wide on the slick surface. The afternoon smelled of cut grass and engine oil. A lawn sprinkler clicked somewhere behind a white picket fence, indifferent to the unfolding scene.
"Anything sharp in your pockets?"
Barker asked.
"Only my shin guards, sir,"
Diego answered, voice trembling now. A car engine roared in the distance, deep, muscular, growing louder. Barker ignored it, patting Diego's shorts and backpack. A passing jogger slowed, frowned, but kept moving, earbuds sealing him away from responsibility. Diego swallowed.
"Officer, you can call my dad. He'll explain."
"Yeah. What's his number, soldier boy?"
Barker mocked. Before Diego could answer, tires screeched. A black SUV vaulted around the corner and halted behind the cruiser, headlights flicking white across the pavement. The door on the driver's side swung open so hard it bounced once against its hinge. Heavy boots landed on asphalt with a solid thud. Barker's hand froze on Diego's shoulder. Barker turned, one hand drifting toward his holstered sidearm as a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped into the dying light. The newcomer wore a plain gray t-shirt, cargo pants, and the unhurried confidence of someone used to storms. His skin was sun-browned, his hair short and regulation neat. He shut the SUV door with a soft click, softer, somehow, than the tension that snapped across the street.
Evening, officer.
The man said. His voice was calm, deep, almost level with the hum of the idling engines. Barker's posture stiffened.
Stay back, sir. Police business.
The man kept walking until the cruiser's rear bumper separated him from Barker. Only then did his gaze slide to Diego, still pinned against the hood. Their eyes met, father and son, and a ripple of courage lifted the boy's spine.
I'm Sergeant Miguel Ramirez,
The man said, producing a leather wallet and flipping it open. The silver badge inside caught a sliver of sunset, throwing a shard of light across Barker's face.
United States Army. That's my son.
Barker glanced at the credentials, jaw clenching.
This kid said his dad was Special Forces. Thought he was making it up.
Miguel's voice didn't rise.
He wasn't.
The subtle emphasis, wasn't, landed heavier than any shout. Yet Barker's pride teetered on a narrow ledge.
We have a report of a stolen bicycle matching his description,
He said, louder than necessary.
Just doing my job.
Then do it right.
Miguel replied. He stepped forward. Barker lifted a hand to block him. In the half-second of contact, rank meant nothing. Only intent did. Miguel stopped, not because he had to, but because he chose to. His stillness radiated warning.
You got proof your son didn't steal that bike.
Barker pressed, words sharp.
Officer, he just left practice.
Miguel said.
Look at the field dirt on him. Call the coach, call anyone there, but first, release him.
Barker shook his head, a nervous tick tightening his jaw.
Procedure says I secure potential suspects.
He unclipped the cuffs from his belt. Metal glinted. Diego's pulse hammered as the first cuff snapped shut around his left wrist. Cold, unforgiving. Barker reached for the second. Instinct shouted. Diego twisted his arm, dropped a shoulder, slipped beneath the officer's armpit, and spun free. The move was clean, reflexive, exactly as Miguel had taught him on lazy Saturday mornings in their garage. Barker staggered, surprised. The loose cuff clanged against the cruiser's fender. His free hand flew to his gun. In an instant, the muzzle pointed at the boy's back.
Don't move!
Barker yelled. Diego froze, cuff dangling, arms half raised, eyes wide. A thin cry escaped his throat, but words failed. For a heartbeat, everything shrank. The street, the houses, the sky itself, all small inside the barrel's black circle. Miguel's voice cut the air.
Holster that weapon, officer.
No roar, no thunder, just cold command. Somewhere behind a hedge, a screen door squeaked. Someone lifted a phone. Another car slowed, windows rolling down. The suburban hailed. Barker's forearm trembled. His gaze flicked from Miguel's unflinching eyes to the spectators gathering, then back to the boy's trembling shoulders. Reason fought ego in silence. Miguel took one measured step closer, hands still empty, badge still visible.
He's a child.
He said, each word a stone on Barker's conscience.
Lower the gun.
The pistol wavered. A neighbor's voice rang out, shaky but clear.
I'm recording this.
The device's lens glittered like a second, smaller sun. Sweat beaded along Barker's hairline. He swallowed. The gun barrel dipped an inch, then two, then pointed toward the asphalt. Slowly, he returned it to the holster, the snap of leather louder than any siren. But the cuff still held Diego's wrist, metal-biting skin. Barker's hand hovered over the keys at his belt, uncertainty etched deep into the lines around his mouth. Miguel's gaze never wavered.
Unlock him,
He said. Barker's thumb twitched toward his taser instead. Phones were everywhere now, raised at windows, behind garden walls, over picket fences. Silence pressed in like thick velvet, suffocating excuses, amplifying every shallow breath. The next move belonged to Barker. A whispered wind crossed Maple Street, lifting dust and the faint smell of cut grass into Diego's face. The metal cuff gnawed his wrist each time his pulse kicked. Sergeant Miguel Ramirez stood a single pace in front of him, broad back, shoulders squared, voice low enough for only Diego and Officer Barker to hear.
Breathe, hijo.
Miguel said, not taking his eyes off the officer.
Slow and steady.
Diego inhaled, then winced as Barker's fingers curled over the loose chain. The officer's cheeks shone with sudden sweat. The crowd of phones made every blink feel documented.
Let go of my boy,
Miguel stated. Barker's chin lifted in defiance.
Step back, Sergeant. I have procedure to follow.
The word procedure landed like a gavel. Miguel's jaw flexed.
Procedure does not include pointing weapons at unarmed children.
I didn't fire,
Barker muttered.
But you aimed.
Miguel answered. Still calm, each syllable polished by discipline.
Now uncuff him. Let's call the coach, verify his story, and finish this the right way.
Barker's thumb slid to his belt, not for the key but for the taser. The crowd murmured as the yellow plastic glinted. Diego's heartbeat scattered like marbles on tile. Miguel's tone darkened by a fractional shade.
Officer, you pull that trigger. You'll tase a 9-year-old who's already restrained. The video will outlive both of us.
A siren yelped in the distance. 2 quick warning chirps, then silence. A second cruiser, perhaps, awakened by Barker's earlier radio call. The sound stiffened every shoulder on the block. Diego's voice slipped out, thin and earnest.
Officer Barker, I didn't take anything. I just want to go home.
Something in the boy's plea grazed Barker's armor of certainty. His eyes darted to the crowd, then to Miguel's unmoving stare. Still, his fingers hovered over the taser's safety switch, trapped between pride and prudence. Miguel shifted, shielding Diego without touching him, making the gesture look effortless, as though the street itself had swiveled around the boy.
Hijo, when I say move, you keep behind me. Understood? Yes, Dad.
Diego whispered, cuff rattling softly. The second siren wailed again, closer. Barker's shoulders hunched, indecision digging furrows into his brow. He turned half a step toward his cruiser, perhaps to retreat, perhaps to radio clarification. The hesitation loosened his grip on the chain. Miguel's command sliced through the tension.
Now, Diego.
With a single word, Diego slid sideways, small body fitting the angle between cruiser and father like water finding a crack. Barker reacted too late. His hand grabbed empty air. The cuff swung free, still closed on Diego's wrist but no longer tethered by the officer's hold. Barker spun, stung by the loss of control. The taser cleared its holster. A hush smothered the street. Even the wind paused, waiting. Before Barker could level the weapon, Miguel's voice rang out, louder than before, yet still measured.
Officer, holster that taser. Last warning.
Barker's lip twitched. The prongs quivered in his grip, yearning for release. A phone camera zoomed. Someone whispered, "He's really going to do it." Diego's pulse roared in his ears. He remembered drills in the garage, how to count heartbeats when fear tried to steal them. 1, 2, 3. Barker's gaze flicked across the circle of neighbors, each lens an unblinking witness. His shoulders sagged a fraction. The taser inched lower but did not return to its cradle. Diego's cuff clinked against the cruiser's bumper, an accidental gavel striking metal. 6 houses away, the second patrol car turned onto Maple Street. Lights strobing crimson and cobalt across neatly trimmed hedges. And then, in the breath before backup arrived, Barker made his choice. With a jerk, he activated the safety light on the taser, the faint red LED glowing like a bead of anger on his knuckle. The crowd gasped as one. Miguel took a deliberate step forward, boots grinding on driveway gravel.
Officer,
He warned, voice no longer calm but carved from iron.
think about what you are about to do.
The taser's laser sight painted a trembling dot on the pavement at Miguel's feet. Chapter 3 closed on that single dot, small, bright, and hovering in the dust between authority and catastrophe. The second cruiser rolled to a stop, doors slamming almost in unison. Officers Patel and Green stepped out, hands near their holsters, eyes widening at the tableau. Sergeant Miguel Ramirez facing Officer Barker, a boy cuffed but unbowed behind his father, and every neighbor frozen in a semicircle of judgment.
Trent?
Officer Green called, confusion threading her voice.
What's going on?
Barker didn't answer. The taser remained raised, LED dot quivering. Sweat traced a crooked path down his temple. Miguel lifted his badge high enough for the new officers to see.
Sergeant Ramirez, U.S. Army. This situation is under control if your colleague holsters that weapon.
Diego watched Green's eyes dart to Barker's trembling arm, to the cuff biting his small wrist, to the dozens of phones recording. Her hand left her sidearm.
Trent,
She said again, softer.
let's talk.
Officer Patel approached Diego carefully, palms open.
You okay, kid?
Diego swallowed.
He thinks I stole a bike.
Patel's glance flicked to the oversized shin guards, the muddy jersey stitched and restitched. His skepticism flowed towards Barker, not the boy. Miguel lowered his badge, stepping between Diego and the taser's red dot. The movement was slow, deliberate, a steel door sliding across a breach. He spoke, low enough for only Barker and Diego to hear, yet the microphones of a dozen phones would carry it further than any shout.
Officer, you have two options. Holster and unlock him now, or explain to Internal Affairs why you terrified a child on camera.
Barker's jaw clenched so hard the muscles popped. For the first time, anger retreated behind doubt in his eyes. The taser dipped another inch. Miguel's next words floated like frost.
Think twice.
The phrase cracked something unseen. Barker exhaled, a deflating sigh of pride, and clicked the taser's safety off. He slid it back into its holster, the motion jerky, reluctant. A collective breath released from the crowd. But Miguel wasn't finished.
Key, now.
Barker fumbled at his belt, producing the small silver key. He stepped toward Diego, hands shaking. Miguel raised a palm.
I'll do it.
Barker hesitated, then handed over the key. Metal touched metal. The cuff sprang open. Diego flexed his wrist, red-ringed but free. Officer Green spoke up, voice firm.
Sergeant Ramirez, we'd like to verify the bike report and get statements from everyone, including you.
Miguel nodded once.
Happy to cooperate.
Phones lowered, some slowly, some with relief. Children on bicycles hovered at the corner, unsure whether to race away or stay for the grown-up drama. A sprinkler resumed its ticking rhythm, as though the street had remembered ordinary time. Diego pressed against his father's side, small shoulder fitting beneath Miguel's elbow. "Dad," he whispered.
Can we go home? Soon,
Miguel answered, hand resting gently on the boy's back.
we do this right.
Officer Patel collected names from the onlookers. Green radioed dispatch, calm but clipped. Barker stood apart, staring at his own hands as though they belonged to someone else. Miguel spoke quietly to Diego.
Keep breathing, hee-ho. This moment will pass. What matters is how we carry it.
Diego nodded, eyes fixed on the cuff now dangling open in his father's grip, gleaming like a lesson he would never forget. Across the street, an elderly woman lowered her phone and wiped a tear.
He's just a child.
She whispered to no one. The sun slipped behind the rooftops, taking the last orange gleam with it. What remained was dull evening light and the long shadow of a single family standing their ground. Phones began to drop from view one by one as neighbors realized nothing more explosive would happen tonight. Yet the footage already lived in collective memory, and soon maybe on 1,000 screens. Miguel turned to Barker one last time. The words he chose were steady as granite.
Remember this: power stands tallest when it kneels to justice.
Barker swallowed, throat bobbing. He managed a nod, small, brittle. Miguel placed the open cuff gently on the cruiser's hood. The soft clink was final, echoing up the quiet street like a closing door. Then, father and son walked toward the black SUV. Halfway there, Diego paused, looking back at the officers and neighbors. At the ordinary world that had tilted, then righted itself within an hour. He memorized the sight. The bright cuffs, the blinking lights, the faces etched with shock, and stored it beside the memory of a perfect goal scored hours earlier. 2 lessons in one day. One about victory on a field, another about survival off it. Inside the SUV, as the engine turned over, Miguel spoke just above the rumble.
You did well, Diego.
The boy's voice was small but sure.
I tried to remember what you taught me.
Miguel smiled, but the curve of his mouth carried sorrow.
And I will keep teaching.
They pulled away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, Maple Street shrank, lit now by the rotating lights of police and cell phones alike. A strip of asphalt where silence had proven louder than gunfire. Out front, the first stars pricked the sky. Diego watched them appear one by one, and wondered whether honor could shine the same way, distant yet guiding, visible even when the sun had gone. Behind them, Officer Barker remained under the blue and red glow, head bowed, while every phone still pointed like tiny mirrors reflecting a single, indelible truth. The black SUV rolled down Sycamore Avenue, street lamps blinking across its windshield like weary eyes. Inside, Diego kept his cuff-bruised wrist pressed to his stomach, as if the ache might leak out if he loosened his grip. Miguel drove in measured silence, knuckles steady on the wheel, gaze fixed far beyond the glow of the headlights. Only when the subdivision thinned into open lots did he speak.
Open the glove box, hijo.
Diego obeyed. A slim metal case rested atop insurance papers. Miguel nodded.
Bring it here.
The boy laid the case on his lap. Miguel guided the SUV onto their driveway, killed the engine, and the world fell into crickets and distant traffic. Under the dome light, he flicked the latches. Velvet lining cradled 3 neat rows of ribbons, a tarnished silver star, and a pair of subdued green tabs that read Special Forces.
These are the things Officer Barker believed only when he saw them.
Miguel said.
But they protected me, not you.
Diego traced a ribbon the color of desert dusk.
You earned them. I did, yet tonight they were worth less than your skin in his eyes.
Miguel shut the lid.
Never forget that difference.
They entered the house. The hallway smelled of lemon polish and old photographs. Miguel set the case on a high shelf, out of Diego's reach, but not out of sight, and fetched a first aid kit. He cleaned the raw line on Diego's wrist with iodine. The boy hissed.
Statutes protect citizens,
Miguel
said, voice soft over the rip of tape. Title 18, Section 242, Deprivation of Rights under color of law. Barker crossed it the moment he drew his weapon. Will he go to jail?
Diego asked.
Unlikely,
Miguel
answered, pressing gauze gently. But there will be a record. Records matter.
Diego looked away, eyes landing on a framed photo. His father in dusty fatigues, smiling beside teammates whose faces were masked by blur. They all looked invincible. Yet tonight, a single badge had bent, almost broke, that certainty. A car door slammed outside. Tires crunched gravel. Miguel's shoulders tensed before his mind labeled the sound. Police sedan. Blue strobes danced on the curtains. Diego's stomach dropped.
They followed us?
Miguel stepped to the front window, fingers parting the drape. Two silhouettes approached the porch, Officer Green and a man in a lieutenant's white shirt. Barker was not with them. A firm knock echoed through the foyer.
Stay here,
Miguel said. He opened the door halfway. Porch light haloed the officers.
Sergeant Ramirez,
The lieutenant
began, hat tucked beneath his arm. I'm Lieutenant Owens, duty supervisor. We'd like to apologize in person and take an official statement, if that's acceptable.
From the hallway, Diego saw Green's troubled eyes slide toward him, soft with remorse. Miguel held the door a moment longer than courtesy required, then stepped aside.
Statement, yes. But my son listens. Everything is his story more than mine.
They entered. The lieutenant glanced at Diego's bandaged wrist and flinched as though the boy's skin accused him personally.
We placed Officer Barker on administrative leave, pending investigation.
Owens said.
Body cam and civilian footage are being secured.
Miguel nodded once.
I have civilian footage, too. I'll submit it unchanged.
Owens cleared his throat.
Understood. Sergeant, I reviewed your record. Silver Star, ODA deployments, language qualifications. Impressive.
Miguel's reply was cold glass.
Those decorations did not shield my child.
Owens's shoulders sagged. He produced a clipboard.
Let's document the sequence of events. Then I'd like to offer resources.
Diego's sudden voice cut through.
Will he say sorry? Officer Barker, I mean.
Owens blinked.
Disciplinary procedures.
Miguel raised a hand.
Lieutenant, my son asked a direct question.
Green spoke, words quiet.
Diego, I spoke with Officer Barker at the station. He isn't ready to speak tonight.
Diego's lower lip tightened.
Thought so.
Silence gathered like evening dew. Miguel signed the statement, each stroke crisp. Owens accepted it with both hands, the way men handle folded flags. At the threshold, the lieutenant paused.
Sergeant, off the record. What would you like done?
Miguel's answer was soft, final.
Teach your officers to see children first.
Owens nodded. A man who understood the homework would never be finished in his lifetime. The door closed behind them. Patrol lights drifted away, leaving the house in midnight hush. Miguel leaned against the wall, exhaustion for the first time bending his frame. Diego stood in the hallway's dimness, eyes on the closed metal case above him.
Dad, he asked, voice barely more than breath. If you weren't there tonight, what would they have done to me?
Miguel's heart lurched at the abyss folded inside the question. He opened his mouth, but the answer, whatever shape it took, would bruise. He swallowed and reached for words that would not betray either truth or hope. Chapter 5 ended on that suspended breath. The room balanced between a child's fear and a father's need to answer without breaking the world. Miguel guided Diego to the kitchen, where the small table sat beneath a single pendant lamp. The boy climbed onto the bench, legs swinging, while his father fetched 2 glasses of water. The hum of the refrigerator filled the spaces conversation avoided. Miguel sat.
I can't promise what might have happened,
He began, voice gravel low.
but I can promise what will happen now. We train, not just moves, mindsets.
Diego sipped, wrist aching.
So it doesn't happen again?
So you're ready if it does.
Miguel corrected. The words tasted of sorrow, but he let them stand.
Respect is a two-edged thing. The part you earn and the part someone grants. You control only one.
Diego looked at the pale bandage.
Today I learned the other edge cuts deeper.
The sentence landed heavier than any reprimand. Miguel exhaled through his nose, remembering desert nights where silence meant survival and dawn made liars of shadows. He spoke as if reading a field manual etched on his heart.
First rule, stay alive. Second, stay honest. Third, document everything. Cameras are witnesses that don't forget.
Diego managed a small nod.
Like the neighbors' phones.
Exactly. You saw how truth found allies when light hit the lens.
Footsteps padded down the hallway. Diego's mother, Lucia, wearing an oversized hoodie, appeared in the doorway, confusion furrowing her brow.
What happened? I just got off call rotation and saw lights.
Miguel's eyes flicked to Diego's bandage. Lucia crossed the room in 2 strides.
Mi cielo, what is this?
Diego told her. Not every detail, just enough to paint fear on her face. Miguel added facts. Weapon drawn, cuff applied, unlocked, officers gone. Lucia's hand trembled on the boy's shoulder, anger blooming beneath love.
We will press charges,
She said.
We will file the complaint,
Miguel corrected gently.
but first we heal him.
Lucia crouched, cradling Diego's wrist as though holding fragile glass. Her eyes met Miguel's over the boy's head. Questions, blame, resolve, all in one glance. Miguel gave the slightest nod, promise nested in silence. A buzz broke the room's heartbeat. Miguel's phone lit up. A text from an unknown number. Video thumbnail frozen on Barker's raised TASER. A neighbor had sent footage already. Beneath the clip, 2 words. Use this. Diego watched the screen.
Can we use it?
Miguel nodded.
We will, but wisely.
Outside, an engine idled, then faded. Perhaps green, ensuring they were safe before departing. The neighborhood slid back into ordinary night, except ordinary had changed shape. Lucia straightened.
You both need food.
She moved to the stove, but Miguel stopped her.
Sit, I'll cook.
He rummaged in the fridge, pulling leftover arroz, shredded pollo, a handful of peas. Flame flickered. Steam rose, carrying cumin and onion into the air, the scent of quieter times. Diego's stomach growled, surprised by its own persistence. While the pan sizzled, Miguel spoke, half to himself, half to his son.
You asked if they would have hurt you. Some would have, some wouldn't. You cannot know which by the uniform alone.
Diego's eyes traced the scar along his father's forearm, souvenir of a country he could barely pronounce.
How do I know then?
Miguel stirred the rice.
You learn to read posture, tone, eyes, and you keep your own voice calm, your stance clear. Fear feeds bad judgment. Composure starves it.
The meal finished, Miguel served 2 plates. Diego tasted salt and warmth, comfort edged with fatigue. Lucia ate standing, restless energy crackling around her. A soft knock at the door startled them all. Miguel set his fork down, spine alert. But when he opened the door, only a small cardboard box waited on the mat. Tape sealed its flaps. No sender marked. He brought it in, slid it open. Inside lay Diego's lost soccer ball, scrubbed clean, initials DR written in neat black marker, and a folded note.
Found it near the park. Keep scoring goals. A neighbor.
Diego's mouth parted.
I didn't even know it was missing.
Miguel squeezed his shoulder.
Sometimes the world takes. Sometimes it gives back.
Lucia lifted the ball, lips trembling.
There are good people.
She whispered.
Yes,
Miguel said, eyes on his son.
and you will learn to be one of them, even on nights when others are not.
Diego felt the weight of the ball, faint rubber smell mingling with arroz and iodine, and realized the cuff's cold memory no longer burned as fiercely. In its place settled a quieter fire, determination. He looked up.
I'm ready to train, Dad.
Miguel's answer was a thin, proud smile, the kind soldiers trade at dawn when missions wait just beyond the horizon. And somewhere in the darkness, a server uploaded a neighbor's video. Pixels stitched truth into a shape the world could not ignore. A silent witness forever watching a taser lower and a child step free. Night settled over the Ramirez house like a wool blanket. Thick, scratchy, laced with quiet. The kitchen light floated in a halo above Miguel and Diego, pushing back the dark. Lucia finished rinsing dishes, but she did not leave. She sat across from her boys as if anchoring them to the oak surface. Miguel folded his hands. His knuckles looked larger tonight, carved from the hours they had just survived.
There's a difference,
He began, voice low.
between fear and respect. Fear keeps people still, but once the danger passes, they forget. Respect stays even when backs are turned.
Diego cradled the soccer ball in his lap. A faint scuff ran across the white panel, a reminder that nothing stayed perfect under pressure.
Officer Barker didn't respect me.
He murmured.
No,
Miguel answered.
he feared losing control more than he respected truth.
He drew a slow breath.
Years ago in Afghanistan, a local elder told me something I've never forgotten. A man's honor travels on the wind before he speaks. He meant that your presence, your carriage, announces you.
Lucia laid a gentle hand atop Diego's.
Your father held his voice steady tonight.
She said.
That is how honor spoke first.
Miguel nodded.
I wanted to shout. Every instinct yelled at me to yank that taser from his hand.
He paused, letting the admission settle.
But shouting would have shifted focus from his wrong to my anger. The goal was to protect you, not punish him.
Diego traced the seam on the ball.
How did you stay calm?
I counted my breathing.
Miguel said.
7 seconds in, 7 out. It's called box breathing. Slows the pulse, sharpens decisions.
Can you teach me?
Diego asked.
Now,
Miguel said. He demonstrated inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold, exhale. Diego mirrored him, Lucia joining without a word. The kitchen expanded and contracted with their shared rhythm. When they finished, Miguel slid a notebook across the table.
we'll keep a log. Every night, write what tested you, how you responded, and what you learned.
He opened to the first page and wrote the date, then handed Diego the pen. Diego hesitated, then printed in careful block letters. I learned that calm is stronger than cuffs. Miguel read it, eyes gleaming.
Good. Tomorrow, add more.
Lucia stood and fetched an old cigar box from a cabinet. Inside lay family keepsakes, a tarnished St. Christopher medal, train stubs from a trip to the Grand Canyon, Diego's first tooth taped in foil. She placed the gauze-wrapped cuff beside them.
The day you no longer need a reminder,
She said.
we'll melt it or throw it in the sea. Until then, it stays here, stripped of power.
Diego brushed a finger across the steel. The metal no longer felt cold, just heavy. Miguel leaned back, chair creaking.
I owe you stories.
He said.
Not war stories, life stories.
He spoke of being stopped at 19 while jogging through a wealthy neighborhood near Fort Bragg, how the officer searched him because a stereo had been stolen. He described the shame of standing shoeless on the curb while strangers stared.
I thought the uniform would insulate me once I earned it,
He said.
but tonight proved otherwise.
Diego listened, eyes wide, absorbing the idea that heroism did not armor against prejudice.
So what do we do?
He asked.
We invest in ourselves.
Miguel replied.
Education, skill, voice, community, those are shields no one can take.
He rested a hand on Diego's shoulder.
And we speak up, not to prove worth, but to remind the world of it.
Lucia cleared her throat, tears shining.
Your father once said courage is love in action. Remember that.
Diego swallowed.
How do I earn respect when truth isn't enough?
The question slipped out, bare and trembling. Miguel didn't answer immediately. He stood, walked to the window, and stared into the yard where shadows of oak branches danced under streetlight. Finally, he turned, eyes steady.
By living your truth so loudly, in deeds, not volume, that no lie can drown it.
Diego opened the notebook again. Under tonight's lesson, he wrote, "Live truth loudly." The clock ticked past midnight. Miguel closed the notebook, placed it on the table, and blew out a breath that felt like setting down a rucksack after a long march.
Bed.
He said softly. Diego hugged his mother, then his father. The soccer ball thumped lightly as he carried it to his room, armor of a different sort. Lucia lingered, but Miguel shook his head.
Rest. I'll lock up.
When the house finally fell silent, Miguel remained at the table, fingertips on the cuff. The steel ring reflected the kitchen light in a thin, unbroken circle. He imagined it forging Diego's resolve instead of binding him. For that, he whispered a soldier's prayer. May tomorrow be kinder, but if not, let us be stronger. He flipped the cuff closed, laid it beside the notebook, and turned off the light. Darkness swept in, but the lessons already glowed within the walls, brighter than bulbs. Calm under fire, voice under pressure, truth louder than laughter. Dawn crept over Sycamore Avenue, soft gray before gold. Miguel rose early, laced his running shoes, and jogged 5 silent miles while the neighborhood slept. Each footfall rehearsed restraint, each exhale rehearsed patience. He returned home smelling of dew and determination. Diego sat at the table, dressed in school uniform, notebook open. He had added a line, "Respect starts inside me." Miguel smiled.
Ready to walk?
Together.
Diego said. Lucia packed a lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, a handwritten note. "You are brave." She tucked it into Diego's backpack and kissed his forehead.
Call me after school.
They stepped outside. The morning air carried the scent of wet asphalt and lilacs blooming along the yard's edge. Miguel adjusted the strap on Diego's backpack. Heavier than yesterday, though nothing had changed inside, proof that some weight was invisible. Side by side, they walked the half-mile to Maple Grove Elementary. Neighbors watering lawns waved or offered awkward thumbs up, unsure whether congratulations or condolences were due. Miguel nodded politely. Diego focused on every patch of sidewalk, planting each shoe with intent. At the school gate, children swirled like bright marbles, laughing, arguing, slinging backpacks onto shoulders. A few glanced at Diego's wrist, where pink skin peeked beyond the watch he now wore, a gift from Lucia this very morning. He touched it, reassurance ticking beneath his fingertips. Coach Ramsey, a red-cheeked man smelling of whistle lanyard and coffee, strode over.
"Heard about last night, kiddo."
His eyes flicked to Miguel.
"You doing okay?"
Better than okay.
Diego answered, surprising himself with the firmness.
Ready for practice tomorrow?
"That's the spirit."
Ramsey said, clapping his hands twice before herding a group of students toward the field. Miguel knelt.
Remember the breathing.
Diego inhaled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. Calm settled like a warm blanket around his ribs.
Got it.
He whispered. Miguel straightened.
I'll pick you up after. Same spot.
Diego entered the courtyard. For an instant he seemed smaller, swallowed by brick walls and taller classmates. Then he squared his shoulders, and the invisible armor slipped into place. Posture, breath, truth. Miguel stayed by the gate, watching. Memories of war zones flickered through his mind. Towns where kids learned to duck gunfire before multiplication tables. He wondered if here would ever truly be different. Yet Diego's stride told him yesterday had not broken anything essential. It had tempered it. An engine idled across the street. A patrol car, different make from Barker's, sat under sycamore branches shedding pollen. Inside, a young officer, cap visor low, observed the drop-off. Routine detail, perhaps. Miguel's gaze locked onto the man's reflection in the side mirror. Curious, neutral, evaluating. The officer's eyes lifted, sensing chin-lifted scrutiny. Their gazes met across traffic, silent as Morse code. Miguel did not blink. The officer reached for something, radio or coffee cup, then paused, hand mid-air, and offered a small nod. Respect or mere acknowledgement? Hard to tell, but the stare held no mockery, no dismissive curl of lip, only watchfulness. Miguel inclined his head once. A message returned. "I see you seeing us." Satisfied, he turned toward home. As he walked, he replayed Diego's earlier question, "How do I earn respect when truth isn't enough?" and recognized the boy had already begun to answer it, through calm steps, upright shoulders, and a notebook's quiet ink. Back at the house, Miguel opened his laptop. He saved the neighbor's video to 3 encrypted drives, drafted an email to the Civil Liberties Union, and filled out the formal complaint with precise timestamps. Each keystroke felt like fitting a plate of armor onto a future day when Diego might need it. At noon, the video surfaced on a local community feed. By 2:30, a regional news site picked it up. Headline muted but clear. Officer aims taser at 9-year-old Latinx soccer player. Comments ignited, some indignant, some defensive, a few vile. Miguel read none of them. He simply noted view counts climbing like mercury. 3 o'clock arrived. He drove back to the school, parked beneath a pine, and waited. Children burst out in waves. Diego emerged last, chatting with a girl from his class. He laughed, a sound Miguel feared might have dimmed, but hadn't. The girl waved and ran off. Diego climbed into the SUV, backpack thudding against the seat.
How was your day?
Miguel asked.
Better than yesterday.
Diego said.
Coach let me explain what happened. Some kids didn't believe it. Then another kid showed them the video.
He shrugged.
They believed the video.
Miguel pulled away from the curb, hand steady on the wheel.
Truth travels on the wind.
He said softly.
Sometimes it needs a screen to ride.
As they approached an intersection, Diego pointed. Officer Barker's cruiser sat parked outside the station, doors shut, windows dark. A cardboard sign leaned against the fence. Protect kids, not egos. Diego stared, then faced forward.
Dad?
Yes?
Will I ever have to cuff someone?
Miguel considered.
Maybe not with steel,
He replied.
but with words, perhaps. When you stand up for someone smaller, weaker, or silenced, that is you locking injustice in place so it can't harm again.
Diego absorbed the thought like soil drinking rain. The cuff mark no longer burned, it tingled. Seedbed for something fierce yet disciplined. The afternoon sun fell through the windshield, warm on their faces. Ahead, stoplights blinked from red to green, clearing a path. In the side mirror, Miguel saw a patrol car pull out of a side street and follow at a respectful distance. No siren, no urgency, just presence. He kept his eyes on the road but acknowledged the shape behind him with a calm breath. 7 in, 7 out. Respect might still be a battle, he thought, but today they marched toward it together, armor tested and shining. And behind them, unseen, unstoppable, a video kept playing. Each view a fresh witness, each share another link in a chain stronger than steel. The road stretched forward, lit by ordinary sunlight. yet edged with the knowledge that vigilance, once awakened, rarely sleeps again.